What's going on, everyone? You're tuned into the Founder Hour podcast. I'm your co-host, Pat, and today's episode is an exciting one. If you've been on Twitter or read any news about the world of crypto in the last 6 months, you've probably heard of NFTs, or non-fungible tokens. At a basic level, an NFT is a digital asset that links ownership to unique physical or digital items, such as works of art, real estate, in-game items, music, or videos. Some of the most popular NFT projects include CryptoPunks, Art Blocks, Bored Ape Yacht Club, and CryptoKitties, with more and more launching every single day. In this episode, we sit down with Roham Gharegozlou. He's the founder and CEO of Dapper Labs, the team behind CryptoKitties, Cheese Wizards, NBA Top Shot, Flow Blockchain, and more, and an early pioneer of the NFT movement. Formed in February 2018, Dapper Labs was spun out of Axiom Zen, a venture studio that Roham launched to bring the benefits of decentralization to the first billion consumers through the power of play, fairness, and true ownership. The company recently raised a funding round of $250 million at a $7.6 billion valuation. We covered a ton of topics, including Roham's upbringing and early career, how he fell into crypto and NFTs, why he created CryptoKitties, his vision for the future, and much more. Here we go.
First of all, thank you guys for having me. Excited to be on the show. In terms of, I guess, how was I as a kid? Well, I mean, I've been somewhat into technology my whole life. I've been into computers my whole life. My family moved around a lot as a kid, just trying to kind of get us, better education and all these things. So I was born in Iran. Family left when I was 6. Did elementary school in Dubai, which was an interesting experience, and then middle school and part of high school in Paris, France, where I've sort of left a piece of my heart in a sense. So kind of always been moving around, and the sort of common thread across it all was the internet, and so I was always online in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and why did your family move around so much? I mean, did it have to do with like the revolution? Because my parents are from Iran as well. I'm Armenian, but they're from Iran, so very familiar with a lot of the stuff that was going on, back in the day. And so I'm just kind of curious, what did it have anything to do with that, or was it more like different reasons?
No, well, this was well after the revolution. So I was born in '86, and we left Iran in '91, I believe. And so it was revolution was '79. So it was just about kind of trying to get the my brother, sister, and I a better education, better access to opportunity, and very, very grateful for them because I think it did its job. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't, as a kid, it wasn't always the easiest thing, right? Having to pick up and move every 4 or 5 years, but overall, I think it gave me a good appreciation for seeing things from different perspectives.
Roham, what did your parents do once you guys left Iran?
In terms of kind of work stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad has he's a distributor for refrigerants. So, working with basically every air conditioner system you use, every car you drive, and every fridge in everyone's house requires refrigerants to run, and he helps distribute them throughout the Middle East and Africa, and so that's why he wanted to kind of be based out of Dubai, and so he works with manufacturers like Honeywell and others, and now they actually have their own sort of manufacturing and shipping facilities. But back then it was mainly just kind of connecting the dots.
Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned being like interested in technology as a kid. Like, can you share some maybe examples or stories of like, I mean, what were you like into computers and programming or different stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I was never a really very good programmer, but I kind of was a jack of all trades when I was younger. And the first sort of money I made, I guess, on the internet was building websites that were kind of informational guides to different subjects. So I literally sat there and I wrote about Dubai. I had a dog at the time, so I felt like I knew a lot about dogs. I wrote about dogs. I made a site about Paris, and I would link to different kind of guides and books and things like that. I think it was the early days of the Amazon affiliates program, and back then there wasn't a lot of content on the internet, and so anything you sort of put up there and you add it to the right search engines and you sort of swapped banner ads with the right website, you got a fair amount of traffic, and that drove a fair amount of affiliate revenue. But kind of being under 18 and based in Dubai and not really set up to accept different forms of money, it was kind of an early taste of, wait a second, why is it so easy to kind of spin something up, but actually taking payments is really difficult. Accepting, being able to get money that you rightfully earned is really difficult. And I guess that sort of seed stayed with me and got me really excited about crypto the first time I heard about Bitcoin. So that I spent a lot of my time kind of just playing around with different things, and most of the time it didn't go anywhere. Part of the same kind of, back then everybody was sort of assembling their own computers and disassembling things and trying to figure out how it works. I guess before kind of everyone had MacBooks that are super locked down. It was a good times.
So, Roham, I know that you eventually ended up going to Stanford, and from what I can understand, based on what you studied, biology and econ, were you on like a med school track who was eventually going to run some sort of hospital, or what was kind of the goal with having those two majors?
I was really excited. I mean, I did. That was my dream, like MD, PhD. I was really excited about biotech, though. I just saw this kind of intersection between, where biology, what computer science was starting to do, and maybe where biology could be. I was always fascinated, obviously, by the human body. I mean, it's just in general, I think it's really important to know how you work, kind of thing, right on the inside.
Right.
But that was kind of the thinking, and honestly, I mean, I was obviously a little naive, or very naive, and I thought I would go get a couple degrees and sort of enter that life, but it was not to be. I mean, the good thing was I got the advice that, hey, look, if you think you're interested in something, just go try it. Don't sort of spend a bunch of time preparing for it and getting degrees and things. And so I was lucky enough to land an internship. I mean, for free at a biotech company, and halfway through my Stanford career, and kind of realized, wait a second, this. I mean, it's obviously it's absolutely incredible, but it's a different pace. It's different, hoops you have to jump through, different kind of barriers you have to put up with, and sort of just tape you have to cross, in a sense. And compared to what I was used to in software, and maybe what really got me going, it was very different. So that's why I kind of switched gears and didn't go down the computer science track, but really wanted to kind of get deep into economics. And actually, my Econ 101 professor is right now on the board of Dapper Labs, so it was a good kind of pivot halfway through. But ended up completing both degrees, which was, which I think was a good decision.
What was it about economics that interested you, and what was one of the biggest learnings or takeaways as a student of econ in college? And I think a lot of folks and the reason I asked this question, I know it's not about crypto or Dapper Labs or anything, and we'll get to that soon. But a lot of the folks that listen to our podcasts are super young professionals or even college students. Sometimes even, professors play and, tell their students to listen to this podcast in their classes in business school or law school. It's been really interesting. And so, I'd like for them and the listeners to understand kind of different perspectives and different learnings from different guests that we have. But from an economic standpoint, what was it that was, something that you took away from it? And would you recommend it to folks that are currently in college?
Yeah, I mean, look, all of these are just tools with which to understand the world, right? Or lenses through which to understand. Like 2004, the year I went into college, was the year Facebook expanded beyond Harvard students and Stanford was the one of the first schools. I think it was first Harvard, then Stanford, and so our dorm was called. They're sort of. I remember they had painted it the face banner. It was called banner. Anyway, it was kind of making fun of Facebook a little bit, or introducing Facebook to the community. And in 2008, when I graduated, was when Bitcoin was the white paper was written, and so crypto wasn't a thing during my Stanford years. But kind of the concept, I guess, economics is just it's the system with which like I was saying, it's important to understand how the human body works, the whole biology thing. I think economics is how society currently functions, right? Both from a kind of how things are priced and how goods are delivered, and sort of how things in terms of microeconomics, and then from a global perspective, and just the tensions between different countries, and a lens through which to really understand what's happening on a day-to-day basis and what happened decades ago, hundreds of years ago. I think economics is just really critical. Now, does that mean you need to go get a degree? I don't think so necessarily. Unless like that's kind of a deep area of focus. But for me, I just realized, look, I'm always going to look at things from a technical perspective. That's sort of what I almost grew up with, right? And then the biological perspectives are just very healthy for life, and good to kind of understand how the body and the mind work. And so what am I missing? Well, I needed kind of a way to understand markets and sort of the business side of things. I still consider myself more of a product person than necessarily a business person. But it's been good to kind of have multiple lenses with which to see the world. And when I mentioned my Econ 101 professor, that was actually corporate strategy. So that was all about how to understand defensibility and long-term profit margins and things like that. And back then, I mean, even Hamilton will say he thought that it only applied to bigger companies. But I thought, I mean, that was the single most sort of defining I don't know, piece of knowledge or whatnot that kind of took that shaped my startup career, and I think eventually not necessarily led to sort of crypto and Dapper Labs, but certainly influenced every decision along the way.
Right.
So you decided you didn't necessarily want to go down the sort of MD path. What did you end up doing instead? I think I saw you worked in venture. Is that right?
I worked in venture as an associate. Yeah, I was lucky enough to join especially back then it wasn't super common for people to go straight into venture after college. But I mean, I had some kind of entrepreneurial successes in my belt, and kind of had a little more playing around in college as well. And so I joined the Newbury Ventures team. Absolutely amazing team. Sort of early stage, we're about $250 million under management at the time. And just helped kind of grow the portfolio, helped raise a new fund, make a series of new investments. Went kind of very early stage, and made a good amount of sort of seed bets that ended up working out for both the team and everybody involved. And that's what kind of got me really comfortable with that early stage 0 to 1, and eventually led me to start Axiom Zen, which then led to CryptoKitties.
So talk to us about what ended up happening where you decided, you want to start Axiom Zen, which from what I understand is a venture studio, and what you just said, CryptoKitties was kind of born out of that. What ultimately, I mean, this was like 2013 or so, which I think, at that time, you mentioned the Bitcoin white paper had been out, and it was, that kind of initial kind of Bitcoin, people are starting to find out about it. Were you part of that wave? And like, how did you even come across crypto? What inspired you to start this venture studio, and ultimately, the projects within it?
So we started the company in 2012. The first, and then Dieter Shirley, who's currently CTO of Dapper Labs, he joined April of 2013. So pretty early in the company's sort of life cycle, and he started talking about Bitcoin almost immediately. And the reason I kind of got excited was less about, okay, mining it. We never actually ended up mining it, which was probably a bad decision. But we started playing around with it as what if it was kind of a payment method between applications, so that you didn't have to, so that two people could just pay each other. And in this context, it was actually the first sort of game we tried kind of prototyping. Hey, I'll challenge you to a game of Flappy Bird, and we'll bet like a Bitcoin, just $300 at the time, or something like that, versus each other. And it was basically an idea of Bitcoin as an application platform rather than a currency was kind of what got us most excited. But obviously the network is what isn't really built for that, even though it's obviously built for a lot more incredible things. So it wasn't until really Ethereum that we started pivoting significant resources into, hey, what can we build on top of it? Axiom Zen was all about exploring emerging technology. So we were playing around with VR AR at the time. We were one of the first developers on Google Glass. We were some of the first developers on Magic Leap, and we did our own projects, but we also worked with bigger companies, and folks like CAA, who's an investor in Dapper Labs now, folks like Plume, who just raised $300 million from SoftBank, and we kind of helped them explore emerging technology, and then we got to kind of explore new areas with them. And at the same time, we were kind of starting to play around with Ethereum, the concept of digital ownership, the idea that, wait a second, if all of life is going to be virtual and mixed reality, who's going to own these assets? And shouldn't a user be able to take things from one experience into the other? And then where's all that information going to live? Wait a second, blockchain is actually a solution for that. But there's no way to define unique items. And so that's what kind of led to the non-fungible token standard, and from their CryptoKitties.
So Roham, just to kind of back it up a little bit, I know you mentioned this, and I just want to kind of build off of that, which was, all of life, or all of society, whatever, will be digital or virtual reality. I mean, frankly, that's the first time I've heard that, but obviously you're in that world. So I'm curious, where does that come from, and what does that mean?
Well, I think I should say all of life will be mixed reality. I think virtual reality will still be something that is kind of almost like going to the movies, or playing a video game. But like you're already seeing it right now, where most of our lives are lived through a computer screen, or sort of enhanced by technology in some way, shape, or form, whether it's calling an Uber or whatnot. But sort of in terms of interfaces, once you imagine things like Apple glasses, or the idea that you can see a digital object in the physical world, and have it even have kind of interactivity, then the importance of sort of ownership between applications, or even basically a communications layer where all of these things can even talk about, well, who owns what, where is everything located, becomes kind of the next step. So it's more just as technology becomes more and more seamless, it'll get adopted by more and more people. And you don't have to have it right in your face for it to be part of your daily life. It kind of already is.
Right. Roham, I'm just curious from a personal level, because I know this show's more about the founder hour and it's about you. As a founder, as an individual, what are your thoughts about a world in which we are living in more of a mixed reality, where digital is almost first, virtual is first, as opposed to in person? Is that something that you, as a person, personally enjoy? Is that something that you want to, see as what our future becomes or is?
Well, look, our motto at Axiom Zen was, those who can build the future, or are building the future, have the power and responsibility to shape its impact. And we don't have the power to stop its impact, right? But we have the ability to shape its impact. And I think the idea of digital becoming more and more a part of people's lives is like, there's certain things that are amazing about that. It brings people together all over the world. It lets people experience things no matter their privilege, right? You don't have to have enough money to travel somewhere. You can simply travel there with a click of a button. It equalizes knowledge, right? You don't have to have the best tutors and the best knowledge. You can look it up at a click of a button. All of these things are incredible, but at the same time, there's potential negatives, and in particular, who owns the value that is created? How can you access? If you're a creator, how can you access your fan? If you're a user and you make an investment, how can you maybe leave that investment or sort of exit if you don't agree with the product or the service being offered? Are you in control? Do you have transparency, or are you at the mercy of kind of the people that built that digital world? And the difference between the digital and physical world is no one's established things like property rights and all of these things until blockchain. Every piece of software, every digital asset ever has been under 100% control of sort of the developer that built that product or service. And so, if the world becoming mixed reality means that certain people become invincible and become kind of gods in whose worlds everybody else lives in with no power, then I think that's pretty negative. But if mixed reality becomes a way for everybody to have accessibility and ownership and opportunity and empowerment, right, be able to create anything and sort of be evaluated on the same merits as anybody else, then I think it's super powerful. And so it's our job as kind of the builders to sort of nudge things in one direction versus the other, and that's frankly what gets us going.
Yeah. So you mentioned CryptoKitties, which is obviously like a project out of Dapper Labs, and I think one of the first and like large NFT projects like that at least I know of. And this was like what 2017ish that I think you guys created it. So talk to us about that time. Like, how did you even find out about NFTs? Was it even like a full on thing back then? Or what was the state of NFTs at the time? And how did you even decide like we're gonna launch this project with these cute kittens and sell these as NFTs?
Well, I mean, like I was saying, we kind of so we wrote the first NFT standard. I mean, people might have used, obviously non-fungible token. People are probably using the computer science context. People may have used the word non-fungible token in a blockchain context. I haven't looked it up, but we kind of we were looking at the problem more from the lens of how do you represent digital ownership on a blockchain. Well, you can do that really easily for a currency. There were thousands at that point, but no one had done it in a sort of no one even really tried to do it for anything other than a currency. There had been CryptoPunks, but they didn't have a standard around them. They were sort of a one-off asset at the time, and things like rare Pepe cards on Counterparty. But so nobody had really kind of tried to think, well, how do we think about it as an asset class, and sort of define rules for it. And so that's what we first started doing. And when we first started working on the standard, I mean, we were thinking about in-game assets, of course, but we didn't come up with the idea for CryptoKitties until. And by the way, the standard applies to everything, right? Like art, in-game assets, insurance contracts, physical items, real estate deeds, anything that is non-fungible and needs to be represented as a digital asset. But we realized that, look, if we want to build, no one pays attention to standards, so let's build a product to kind of demonstrate it. And obviously, we can't build a product about real estate deeds. It'll take us forever to get, legal approvals and, big partners to work with us. And we actually went down that road, but decided to kind of build something simple, something that is our own IP. What better place to start than digital cats? Because internet always starts with digital cats. And so let's say, let's put cats on the blockchain, and then what do we make them do? Well, let's make them breed. And so they breed and they lay eggs, and those eggs lead to new CryptoKitties. And so we only ever released 41,000 CryptoKitties. The other 2 million have been bred by players over the last little while. So until Top Shot, CryptoKitties was the most successful NFT product with about 100,000 owners or so.
So, Roham, can you explain what it was or what it is, how people bought it, what it did? Because I know a lot of people that are probably listening to this podcast thinking, what the hell are CryptoKitties, right? I mean, Pat and I know it because we follow a bunch of different things across many different, categories of life and business. But for just the general person that goes to work, does their job, goes home, feeds their family, and does it all over again, they might not be as familiar with crypto in general, or take it one step further now, NFTs. So, do you mind just kind of in layman's terms explaining and giving us an overview of what CryptoKitties are?
Yeah, of course. I mean, but I think in layman's terms, the easiest way to understand it is to think about them in comparison to in-game assets, because everybody understands, $100 billion a year is spent on in-game assets, right? Things that
Right.
are digital, but that live inside games. Now, the only difference between, a let's say a Fortnite skin and a CryptoKitty is that a CryptoKitty you can take with you outside of CryptoKitties, and there are a number of marketplaces, a number of lending services, collateralization. You can break a kitty up into a million different little pieces and list them on an exchange. And all of these products are built by different people. I think kitty races might still be live. There used to be a product for dressing up your kitty. Basically, your sort of in-game item is mobile, so it can move around, is portable. And the other difference between a NFT and an in-game item is that you can sell it, and it has real monetary value. We just had, just a couple of weeks ago, there were, I think, $8 million or so of CryptoKitties traded in a single day. We have CryptoKitties that are today changing hands for $500,000-$600,000. And these are because of their sort of collectability, their desirability, their rarity, and we can get into kind of the specifics of CryptoKitties, but that's kind of the simplicity of NFTs. NFTs are just digital items, in a sense, the way they should be, and that when you buy something, you can sell it, you can take it with you anywhere you want. And then to a developer, a NFT is a digital asset that you can build for without asking anybody's permission. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I guess where do you see in the foreseeable future? Because obviously you guys have CryptoKitties, and then you have Top Shot, which you kind of alluded to, but that's kind of the one where you can essentially own like NBA, like a play, like a LeBron dunk or something could be like yours to own essentially, right? Is that right? I don't want to butcher this.
Yeah, absolutely. Greatest moments in NBA history, and people make collections, and but that's kind of surface level for us. Top Shot, and by the way, we're doing the same thing with NFL. We're doing the same thing with La Liga and with UFC. For us, it's about the future of fandom, because the fans of the future want to show off their fandom. They want to have skin in the game, so they're putting money where their mouth is in a certain sense. And then they're going to get rewarded for it. We're sending Top Shot collectors to experiences that, frankly, are just once in a lifetime. Things that before Top Shot, nobody could have access to.
Yeah, and so I guess my question was going to be, where do you see the biggest use case in the foreseeable future? Like, what is the thing that sort of tips? Is like the tipping point for NFTs, even though we're kind of already getting to that point, but I feel like we're still at the early adopter phase, and we're gonna, I'm talking about like the early majority phase. Like, is it collectibles? Is it art, which I guess kind of falls under collectibles? Is it something else? Like, where's the biggest sort of area you see it really growing?
I think. Look, I always like this thing. The future of life is non-fungible. I have a silly little talk I did in 2017 that that was the title, and I mean it, because everything in life is non-fungible, other than your money. And if you're a commodities trader, your commodities, everything else you do is non-fungible. It's unique, and it's unique to you. It's personalized, and so eventually, an NFT is just it's like a file format, right? It's a technology, it's a standard, and so it will apply to almost everything. Now, what's going to be the early drivers of adoption? I think, obviously, collectibles, sports. We're barely getting started with what we want to do in sports. But we're also seeing, when you mention art, I don't think art is about collectibles. Like it's not the exact same thing. I think art is
Yeah.
about supporting artists, and I think of it almost like a decentralized Patreon, or sort of Patreon the way it should be, in the sense that it's you connecting with an artist, having stake in that artist, helping that artist grow, and then benefiting financially when they do well. That's pretty incredible. So I think art is a big driver, but obviously art is somewhat of a, I guess, high end activity. Even though NFTs democratize it in a big way, just like, let's say Instagram democratizes photography. And then gaming. I think gaming is absolutely massive. Obviously, we're big fans of what Axie is doing, and onboarding millions of users. Axie and Top Shot are two of the most adopted NFT projects, and I think that gaming as a category is just barely getting started. I heard from one of the world's largest VCs today that every single gaming pitch that they get is a NFT pitch now, and so what that means is there's just a backlog of 1,000 or more qualified entrepreneurs coming to market with really interesting projects, and I can't wait to see them and support them.
I wanted to play a little bit of devil's advocate here because for me, this is a lot about a learning experience, and really, that's kind of been the point of this podcast the last 4 years, is to learn about what people are doing and how they got to that point, but also take away some actual, facts and learnings from it to then go ahead and apply it to your life. But so, Roham, I'm somebody, let's call it, I'm in the real estate world. So what you were saying earlier was super interesting to me, and it just kind of got my gears spinning. But take NFTs and combine it with the real estate, commercial real estate world, etc. What is the pragmatic use of NFTs in that world? Perhaps it's not being done yet, but what can people do? When you buy a house, you can physically live in it. If you buy a digital version of a house, you can't necessarily live in that house. But what can you do with that digital house, that digital real estate, that will make it interesting for the regular consumer or investors, etc.?
Um, well, look, I think that the word NFT today is synonymous with collectible for most people. And in a collectability sense, there's not much that a digital version of a piece of commercial real estate. I mean, I guess it depends on the piece of commercial real estate, but that's sort of
Right.
your answer. Like it's
Yeah.
what generates love or hate is collectible. What generates like or indifference is not collectible. And so that's sort of I guess one answer, but I think that's the short-sighted answer. The real
Right.
answer is, I think,
And
in the
I'm
long
thinking,
term.
by the way, I was thinking beyond just collectible, like what, because I have ideas in my head of what I think pragmatically can work and how an NFT is useful in that specific space. Just an example, but I'm curious from somebody that's been doing this for years now, what that actually looks like.
Well, look, there's two defining characteristics of an NFT. It is open for the user and it is open for a developer. And so the kinds of things that an NFT is useful for is when having access to a fully transparent, fully global market, or an unlimited number of fully transparent, fully global markets with complete transparency, at every single step of the way. That when that is useful, then an NFT might be helpful. And so I guess NFT is a sort of, as long as you have trusted bridges between the physical and the digital, then NFT is kind of MLS out of the box, right? And it's MLS in a way that no one has to maintain it. It just exists and everyone can use it. There's no central party. There's no budget. There's no maintenance fee. There's no consultants. There's no auditors. And then for developers, it means that they can build on that data. That state is the real word for it, although it's a hard word to define. Developers can build for that state without asking for anybody's permission, without paying anybody, and without anybody being able to block, censor, or subvert their access. And what that means is they can build any kind of application on top of that data, allow any kind of transactional ability, right? Because that user has the ability to pay any amount of money with just one click. They don't need any middleman. They don't need a banker to approve $1 million transaction unless they've sort of asked for it. And so you can have basically the same level of kind of that idea of an app for everything that is now on the iPhone. You can have it for everything, but without the iPhone, without the App Store, without a 30% tax, without a review and approval process. You just kind of have that out of the box. That's sort of the long term. But of course, today there's no community of 1 million developers building commercial real estate apps on top of commercial real estate NFTs. So that's why we're building cats and basketball cards.
Yeah. So obviously it's still so early, and it is a little bit of a wild west. And with that comes, there's so many incredible like NFT projects that are happening. And if whoever's listening doesn't know what's happening, like go search it, and I'm sure you'll see. But then sometimes you'll read articles about this scam or that scam, and this person got screwed over, or that group got screwed over. And so from your opinion, like how should people be going about this if they're just hearing about NFTs for the first time, if they're interested in seeing what it is, they want to get into the game, they want to get their own NFTs, how should they go about it so they're like at least a little bit careful to not get scammed by anything, or make sure that it's like a legit project?
Yeah, I mean, I think the easy first answer is go to NBATopShot.com. With $9, you can have 3 NFTs, and you can put in a credit card, and there's no complications. There's no browser extensions or gas or scams or anything. So that's probably that's sort of the easiest answer. There's a couple dozen apps that are that easy and sort of that out of plug and play. And then there's kind of the quote unquote Wild West, right? Where you sort of wear your suit and you wear your helmet and you kind of go outside. And on Ethereum, that's basically MetaMask, which kind of gives you access to the Ethereum non-custodial ecosystem. On Flow, that role is played by Blockto, which is, in my opinion, a little easier to use. You don't need a browser extension. You can just use your email, but you're still in control of your keys. And you can explore any kind of sort of quote-unquote non-custodial asset. But that's the problem. You're running the risk that anytime you sign a transaction, unless you're going to sit there auditing the code, that you're sort of taking a risk. Now, of course, you can go to only trusted websites, and Blockto tries to find scams, MetaMask tries to find scams, but that's sort of the problem, right? And we have in the Flow universe, you're going to have apps where you can log into with your Dapper wallet, which is the wallet you get on NBATopShot.com. That'll include NFL, that'll include UFC, La Liga, whatever. It'll also include Genius. It'll also include a number of third-party marketplaces, things like OpenSea. I mean, hopefully OpenSea one day when they come to Flow. But that'll be sort of your trusted universe. Anything you buy with a Dapper wallet. We don't have insurance today, but you can imagine us offering insurance, basically saying this is sort of the safe zone. And then when you kind of explore outside of your Dapper wallet, my advice would be just start with a little bit of money, and have multiple wallets. Kind of, that's what everybody does. When you hear number of active wallets, everybody has multiple wallets because that's the safe thing to do. And if you end up having real amounts of capital, money that you would be upset about losing, make sure you understand sort of the details that come with self custody, right? You're going to want a hardware wallet. You're going to want to pay a lot of attention to who has your recovery codes, what happens in case you're unreachable, and all of these things. It starts getting complicated. So we believe most people will want to stay within that sort of Dapper wallet universe. And eventually there are ways where they can get their keys back and sort of control them and become power users. But there's a little bit of sort of hand holding, and we got to keep the user safe. That's the only way I think the technology is going to progress.
Yeah, I agree.
Roham, just switching gears for a second to you as a founder. At the end of the day, this space, even though, a file has been around for a long time now, but this kind of branding of the NFT and the NFT world is more recent. As a founder in such an early industry, let's call it, how do you stay focused? Because I can imagine, myself in an industry where it's just like Pat was saying earlier, the wild, wild west, and like everything that you do can be a new idea, a new program, a new product. I would probably lose focus. I'd be like, I want to do this. I want to do that. I could do this. I could do that. How do you get yourself to just say, I'm just sticking to this? Or are you the way that I would be?
I definitely like new ideas, but I think it's really important to be honest with yourself about what's sort of post product market fit, as in what's reality, and you have data, and you have momentum, and you have to treat that as your number one priority, and you have to treat that as the an overriding priority. It's not even a hey, that gets X% of my time. That gets 100% of my time, 110% of my time if it needs it. But then I think that is really important to have sort of your pulse on everything that's sort of breaking out in other sort of adjacent industries, in things that are maybe potentially coming closer to your core business, or going to be affecting kind of the underlying platform in some way. And the way I like doing that is investing and backing entrepreneurs that I believe in, whether it's through, I mean, usually it's just investment. More recently it's been through acquisition. We just acquired, we announced the acquisition of Brud, and Trevor, Nicole, Kara, that whole team, and what they're focused on with Dow's and Lil Michaela. That's something that none of us at Dapper Labs have the time to be focused on, but they're going to be focused on it. We have shared alignment, we share values, and we share a common goal of saying, let's put blockchain wallets in as many pockets as possible, because these are the gateways to an open future. And so that would be my answer, is we make sure that each team is hyper focused, and we make sure that we understand, hey, look, this is post product market fit, but this other thing here is a really important experiment, and we need to make sure we're learning as much as possible.
Right.
Obviously, NFTs, I mean, if you're on Twitter, you read these stories all the time of how kind of life changing they could be, right? From so many different ways, like monetarily, but also like from like just a fulfillment standpoint, whether you're launching one or what have you. And so I guess based on, being in the space for all these years, and obviously seeing all this growth recently, are there any stories that you've kind of come across that kind of stood out to you? It could be Dapper specific or just in general.
There have been a lot of amazing stories. My favorite ones are how NFTs have brought families together, and it's people are opening packs with their kids. People are, especially, now there's the Dr. Seuss app that is just perfect for people with especially young children. But NBA Top Shot, it's gotten families going to sports games, and keeping track of getting back into rivalries even, and those are my favorite stories. My probably second favorite stories are kind of athlete and athlete fan kind of just crossovers. And Harrison Barnes, for example, he sent some signed jerseys to one of his fans that just went crazy collecting his Top Shots, not expecting anything, and just went out of his way and made someone's day, or made it's kind of a once in a lifetime feeling, really. The players that go out of their way to kind of jump on live streams and just talk about Top Shot, and hearing them get excited about seeing their moments is kind of, that tells us we've designed the right product. So those are some of my favorite stories, and we're starting to do a lot more kind of in-person events as the borders are opening up, and just bringing people together. It's kind of, they're sharing more of their Top Shot stories, and they're kind of creating friendships, which is really, really cool to see.
So Roham, one thing I've been thinking about for the last, whatever, it's been 18 months plus at this point since this damn pandemic started. And from my world, from a professional sense, and just personally from what I've seen, there seems to be a lot more capital floating around, right? Whether it's these insane, venture capital deals that you see, whether it's investments in commercial real estate, whether it's folks buying homes at ridiculously high prices, right? There seems to be a lot of money out there. And like Pat said, it's NFTs are all over Twitter. Crypto, you've seen the prices of all these cryptocurrencies go up as well. Is this just a trend? Is it just something that will eventually pass? I mean, some of these some of these NFT prices that we've seen in the last few months, I mean, they're in the millions and hundreds of thousands. Is that just the beginning? Is that going to be the baseline? Or was it just one of those pops and then we'll just kind of see it decline? What have you seen on your end?
I mean, I can't really comment on specific price movement of specific things, and I'm more of a builder, not a trader, so I wouldn't take my my advice calling bottoms or tops either way. Look, I mean, one of the important things to also think about is just what are you pricing things relative to, and when it's relative to the U.S. dollar and everything has gone up in price, then maybe it's more important to look at price differences relative to each other. And if you do that, then obviously certain NFTs still look completely out of whack. I mean, personally, I think the community of today is placing a high amount of sort of mimetic value on on provenance, if you want to if you want to think about it that way. Like, there's a small group of people that care a lot about, oh, this was the first rock on Ethereum or what and I think that that's interesting. And look, like, you don't need at the end of the day, as an NFT, you need two buyers to establish a price for something, because only one person can have it. And so when you have ultra rare items, I have no ability to judge what's the right price for one thing versus the other. That's a really important kind of concept to sort of internalize. Is if people don't want to sell, then the price is infinity, right?
Yeah.
And so there's that on the one hand, and on the other hand, we're scratching the surface in terms of the number of people involved in NFTs. It is still tiny. Like I say, there's about 1 million Dapper wallet users. There's about 500,000 sort of paid users, 560,000. And then we talk about kind of a couple 100,000 monthly active wallets on a marketplace, the biggest marketplace, OpenSea. But how many of those wallets? How many people have multiple wallets? Well, almost everybody. How many people have dozens or hundreds of wallets? I don't know, but kind of you do the math, and that's not a lot of people. And so the market itself is just barely getting started, and most of us that have been here for years are here because we believe in it, and they're if people were rushing to sell once prices went up, they would have done so. And so kind of that kind of brings me back to my point is, an NFT, if there's two buyers for it, that's kind of what the price ends up being. And so it's important to think about, I guess, rarity and scarcity and whether it's Top Shot. And for example, on Flow, a lot of these NFTs that are coming out are smaller projects. They are one of ones. They are one of tens. Literally 10 pieces. And so, and most of them are being bought by people who would never have an intention to sell. And that's just an important concept to think about.
Roham, one thing that I have been also tracking is kind of the environmental impacts of cryptocurrencies, and whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, et cetera, in general. And I don't know how true this statement I'm about to make is, but I was reading somewhere and heard from somebody else recently that Bitcoin mining is already taking up about 1% of the entire United States energy consumption, which 1% is a low number, but that's also a very big number when you think about the amount of energy that is being used by mining cryptocurrencies. And I know Ethereum requires a lot of electricity, which obviously is a form of an energy. What is the industry in general doing about those things to make it a lot more sustainable? Because I know that with a lot of success eventually comes, challenges, right? People start pointing out all of the flaws and the things that are not good about a certain category or industry. So I guess more for just general knowledge, what is being done about that?
Yeah, look, I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, for one thing, probably the most important thing is that to acknowledge like environmental concerns are super important, and I think climate change is a real thing. So we have to kind of be conscious about it at every step. And when it comes to blockchains like Flow, uh, the environmental impact is minuscule. It's something like 100,000 times less than sort of the previous generation, which includes Bitcoin and of course, but basically all what we call sort of proof of work blockchains are incredibly energy intensive because they require the burning of energy to establish that sort of concept of decentralization and trust. And then the next generation beyond proof of work is what's called proof of stake. Flow fits into this. A lot of the other kind of blockchains also fit into this, but Flow in particular is designed to be the greenest possible architecture because it basically segregates the hardest work to computers that are operated by companies like Google, like Samsung, like as well as some individuals. But these are basically machines designed for efficiency, but they have no decision making power. They're basically kind of workhorses, but they work for a decentralized group of much larger group of computers that are all very small, very efficient, that can run on home, internet connections, home hardware, home electricity. And so you don't have this idea of giant, inefficient server farms or everybody competing with each other for electricity. The whole network takes zero point 0.9 gigawatt hours or consumes 0.9 gigawatt hours per year. And so that's about 100,000 times more efficient according to our calculations. So, I mean, what I'm saying is it's not we've got to acknowledge the problem, but it is on its way to be solved.
That's great.
Yeah. It's an interesting space in general because, we talked about NFTs about, how there's builders and developers, and then there's like the consumers and the folks who like want to own these assets. And then there are the traders who don't really care about either. They just kind of want to, make money on it, which it's an interesting, dynamic. And so as a builder, like you mentioned, you're sort of mainly focused on that. In general, when it comes to technology, I mean, you're definitely someone who, definitely are on the forefront of that. But what advice would you give to people that are just interested in building in tech and building in whether it's crypto or whatever? Like, how do you stay on top of trends and what's coming? Like, do you recommend people, is it like just going on Twitter all day and seeing what people are talking about? Where does all this come from, at least for you?
So here's the thing. The problem is that the people who have the time, the people who are building the most, and so they're sort of really looking under the hood, are usually very, very busy, and so they don't end up being the ones that are tweeting the most. And certainly like the how-to guides and the YouTube videos, it's just not mature enough yet where there's sort of playbooks for any of this stuff. So I would say the best thing to do is I mean, the absolute best thing is just jump in yourself. And then the second best thing is to talk to people that are building, and sort of, and well, as you're building, ask people questions. Don't just rely on what's public, because what's public is really what's scratching the surface of what people are working on. I mean, we've launched one product out of every 10 that we've even sort of ideated on. I mean, that's just kind of back on the Ethereum days, but we've learned a lot over the years. And it's knowledge that nobody at our organization has had time to even write up internally, much less write up externally. And so, it's just really important to jump in. And, if you go to docs.onflow.org.org, that's sort of our attempt at saying, hey, this is the right way to onboard to blockchains. And, this is how you understand accounts and transaction fees and how you think about ownership and at every level. And so I think Flow is a very easy blockchain to onboard to, because it's sort of built from a perspective of a developer. And we're not hiring crypto people. We're hiring people from Facebook and Amazon and sort of the as well as kind of gaming companies, and they're understanding sort of how to get started, because we don't start with, hey, this is how the security proofs work. All of that's a little bit under the hood. We try to kind of start with, hey, this is what the customer needs, and this is how you deliver it a little bit better. So docs.onflow.org is where I would point folks to.
Roham, there's something that I've been dying to ask you, because I mean, your background is very similar to ours in the sense that you come from immigrant parents. And if I were to tell my parents and my close friends and family that I were to start a company in the NFT space and try to explain it to them, they would think that I'm out of my fucking mind, right? So I'm just curious, because they won't understand, what it really is. But I'm curious, what has been the feedback that you've gotten from your family, your parents, your close friends when you first jumped into this space, and even now?
Well, I mean, look, I did start when we started Axiom Zen. It wasn't the same sort of high risk, let's bet everything on, on sort of one idea. Axiom Zen was all about the perspective of let's explore multiple areas, let's explore multiple products, let's build a team iteratively where we take multiple swings. We spun out a company. Our first company we spun out was in 2015, Routifik. That's went on to raise outside money. It's profitable. Our second company was ZenHub, same thing, outside money, profitable. And so by the time we started playing around with CryptoKitties, the company had cash in the bank. It had kind of it had revenue coming in the door. We had made tens of millions of dollars of revenue at that point. And so we kind of had that security of sort of trying to work on extremely speculative, let's say, ideas. And so, I didn't really tell anybody about it. The big question came in when, I left Axiom Zen, and I said, well, I'm leaving all of that behind to focus on Dapper Labs. And then, crypto crashed a few months after that. And here I was 3 years later still talking about NFTs. That's when people started really asking me if I felt okay. And they saw, hey, we have our whole team cranking nonstop that whole time, over 100 people. And everyone was like, hey, are you guys still working on that NFT thing? Right up to the Top Shot launch, everybody thought we were crazy.
Yeah. Another company is called Axiom Zen, and I don't know how much like Zen you practice or like how much meditation you do, but I have a pretty Zen question. Fast forwarding, like, I want to say 10 years, but there's so much happening every single day where maybe
10 months.
Say, 5 years. Looking forward, and at that time looking back, like what needs to happen for you to be like, you know what, like this, I did my job. Like I did everything I wanted to do. Like this is where I wanted it to be, and we made it happen. Like what does it need to look like? What do you want to accomplish?
Well, I mean, I think every digital asset of value will eventually be an NFT. So I don't know if I'd be disappointed if that doesn't happen. I mean, like you, I try to be zen and pretty, pretty happy most of the time. But that's, I think, what will happen. I mean, I think that like I said, this is sort of a foundational technology. It kind of unlocks benefits for both the developer and the user. And by the way, the only benefit of the developer, like the reason it's cool for a developer to have open access, is because just more choice for the user. So, I think that that'll, digital life will be non-fungible, and I think it'll happen on Flow. And I think that that'll mean more openness for everybody. It'll mean, you buy something on a certain website, you can bring it into your Facebook and your Instagram. That the communities across both can sort of interact, and it'll start sort of breaking down a little bit. Well, I guess Facebook and Instagram, same companies, Instagram and Snapchat. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But so I think the world's biggest companies will adopt it, and then I think new IPs will be born from it, and that's really exciting. And maybe a little Michaela and CryptoKitties are sort of, the starting point. But I think it's so exciting to think about, well, who else is starting right now and starting out their entrepreneurial journey where, decentralized systems and crypto and direct payments and full ownership and all this stuff is the only thing they know. They've never grown up in the world of copyrights and trademarks and licensing and, multi-decade sort of brand building and stuff like that. It's really about community building. And I think you're sort of starting to see it and on Flow with things like Hoodlums, on Ethereum with things like Bored Ape Club, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I think we're all good, man. This has been a really great conversation. I mean, learned a lot, and I hope people listening did too. And it's definitely a space that we're keeping an eye on. Obviously, it's super exciting, and it's going to be interesting to see like all the things that unlocks, even from a physical world perspective, because I think there's so much there too. And so, yeah, we can't thank you enough for hanging out with us and sharing your story and all of your insight and wisdom. And best of luck with everything you're working on, and we'll be rooting for you.
Thanks, Roham.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for having me.